This is the fourth Sunday of our exploration of Nahum, comfort. Nahum in Hebrew, comfort, comfort ye my people, from Isaiah 40. Comfort, comfort ye my people in the hymn we've been singing week by week. Comfort, a rich word, it turns out, which has, I think, an entry point for every one of us. All the richness and the availability of comfort comes to us in the person of Jesus. And we're getting this close to Christmas. And so we read now, finally, the announcement of Jesus' birth by the angel. Today, we read this account in Luke's gospel. We could have also read a very similar account in Matthew's gospel. We could have read a more mystical version of this account in John's gospel. But we could not have read this account in Mark's gospel. As we read a few weeks ago, Mark jumps right in to the River Jordan and Jesus being baptized as an adult. Mark's was the earliest gospel written. So why did Matthew and Luke choose to expand the story? How does adding this birth narrative of Jesus' life help us to receive the good news? I ask this question thinking especially of those of us who struggle with, in our minds and in our spirits, I think, with the virgin birth, or with Jesus being called Son of God. I believe God created all that is, and that God just as mightily comes to each of us personally. If God wanted Jesus of Nazareth to be born of a virgin, it seems to me the easiest thing in the world for God to do. But whether such a thing draws you in or confounds you, we're missing a lot in Luke if all we see in Mary being visited by the angel is the nature of her conception. Sentence by sentence, Luke is gathering up miracles of many varieties in this short story. The miracle of a young woman who is not terrified by the angel's appearance, but is perplexed and curious, and then who turns out to be ready for all that she hears announced to her. Did you notice the angel still says, "Do not be afraid"? I didn't go back and search the Greek or anything like that, but I like to imagine that the angel is just so used to that response that the angel says that, even though Mary turns out not to have been afraid. Another miracle in God's favor shown to Mary and to us as individuals. Because how often do we mistake that God could not or would not favor us? The miracle of conception, which is always more than a biological event. The miracle of this child being called Son of the Most High, Son of God. I'll return to that in just a minute. The miracle of God's faithfulness through generations, which Luke proclaims when he uses the words, the house of Jacob, descendant of the house of Jacob. Jacob was Jesus's far distant ancestor. The miracle, I'm not kidding, Luke just layers these miracles one on top of the other. The miracle of God placing Jesus upon the throne of David. This too I'm going to return to in just a minute. And the miracle of Mary's cousin Elizabeth conceiving, who had thought to be unable to. with all these miracles, I don't think that Luke expected our belief, our relationship to Jesus, to turn on the virgin birth. Virgin birth was not explicitly part of the Messiah prophecies, actually, though it was ascribed to some powerful rulers of Jesus' own day, and was, in some sense, a narrative signal of greatness, whether supernaturally miraculous or naturally miraculous. Luke has gathered up then miracles that are visceral, that are particular, that are historic, that are covenant-laden, to reveal very much in Jesus' short birth announcement. He's using, if we have ears to hear, code language and poetry and revelation in story form. It was not written to be true in the way that a Facebook album of photos of a birth in Bethlehem would be true. But it is the true story of the birth of Jesus. Luke gets all these different angles that we need to see the experience for what it is, for who it is. I said last week that we were on the cusp. We were just almost there to the center of Nahum, comfort. We have arrived. Having spoken a bit to some of the other miracles, I return to the proclamation of Jesus as Son of God, who will sit on the throne of his ancestor David. This is the King David from way back. Probably all of you remember King David. We heard this morning about David settling into Jerusalem, settling into a wooden house, a house of cedar, and then deciding it was time to build God such a house. And then God speaks up and says, wait a minute, you misunderstand my living situation. David, I have lifted you up. David, I have set you free. I have cut off your enemies. I will make of you a house. I will make of you a house. These are the words that Luke remembers, and he pulls them forward into the birth announcement, places them into the moment of Mary's conception so that they are revealed, not as a promise about descendants who stay in royal power, but a promise about where God will settle on earth, which is in us. Yes, Mary, it is so, the angel announces. And your son Jesus will so definitively reveal this, will so definitively reveal God dwelling in us, that he will be called Son of God. And because I know that this claim is also slippery, or even a strain on some of our belief, I want to say directly, I believe Jesus was the Son of God, the human incarnation of the presence and the love of eternal God. But also, I note that Jesus didn't tend to share it by saying that. Instead, Jesus spoke about his relationship with God by talking to God in the presence of others, by saying, Abba, Dad, I pray to you. And then Jesus would welcome others to pray that same prayer with him. Call God Father, call God your Abba. So Jesus is revealed to us today as the Son of God when we hear that call from him to join him in that prayer, when we hear him call us Son of God, daughter of God. God has made of each of us a house for his dwelling. You've probably heard that said before in some way. But pause and hear Luke's gospel, in the gospel read this morning, gathering up the many miracles that he gathers in order to proclaim that this indwelling in us by God is a unifying of everything. It is a revelation that is given in Jesus for all time. The incarnation, we end up calling this. The enfleshment of God. The incarnation in Jesus reveals for all time the incarnation in each of us by the Spirit making its home here. This is the ultimate nachum, comfort of indwelling. Why did Luke give us this expanded story of Jesus' life? Why did he add the birth narrative? Yeah, you could get all of this from the later life of Jesus. You can see it in his words. You can see it in his healing. You can see it in his compassion. You can see it in his growth as a person. You can see it in his resistance to the powers of empire and of evil. But Luke and Matthew expanded the story to tell of Jesus' birth, because they who were so close to the revelation, they wanted to pull together all the strands, the particular, the historic, all the others. They wanted to pull them together and present them to us in the remembrance of a child being born. This child being born. The revelations that Luke provides, they cut through the need to be a great scholar, a great philosopher, to understand who God is to us. Our indwelling by God with Mary, with Jesus, it is what we try to hold, what we try to enter, what we welcome in baptism. It is grace. Indwelling is mercy. It is forgiveness. It is peace. Luke invites us all to the position of Mary, to be perplexed, to be curious, and then to be ready to find that God is nudging life around in us to make something new. The ultimate comfort, the ultimate nachum of God's indwelling in us.